mission. Today's the last Sunday before Christmas. Christmas celebrates the birth of one of the most amazing beings to ever come onto this planet, Jesus of Nazareth. Sometimes I wonder, was he born human? Was he born an avatar? So was it divinity that was coming to teach us, or was it a human that came and brought himself fully into Christ consciousness, then to turn around and to teach us that is our path too. That is why we're here. That is the only reason we're here. So Jesus calls us to awaken the Christ within us. He calls us to become Carl the Christ, Jeff the Christ, John the Christ, Shelley the Christ. Christmas is a reminder of that, because that was the mission. That is the mission. Today, it is your mission. Each and every one of us is on that path. When you look at all the different religions, at their core, in their essence, there are teachings that teach individuals how to shift their consciousness, how to awaken. And that was the core of each one of the religions until dogma took over, the intellect took over, and shifted it back from the intuitive mind that was awakening into the intellect that was full of words that were flat and meaningless in many ways. So let me give you an idea of how radical a transformation we're talking about. How radical a transformation it is to take the mind from our daily functioning of the intellectual mind that is based on word, it's linguistic, it has a past, present, and future, and move it into the intuitive mind that connects with the divine. For a moment, take a look at the picture of an orange and look at it and look at the different qualities of it. It's kind of shimmering, it looks real juicy, the color is orange. Now close your eyes. I'm going to tell you what it tastes like to experience an orange. I already said it, the color is orange. There's some sweetness in it, maybe a little tartness. Each section has this very thin film which just explodes with flavor when you bite into it. Now imagine if I told you, open your mouth and I'm going to put a section of that orange in your mouth and I want you to bite on it. All of a sudden, you have this burst of flavor, and you know what the experience of an orange is. You experience it directly. You can open your eyes. When I described it, it was intellect. It was words. It doesn't even come close to the reality of experiencing the orange. That is the shift we're talking about. The difference between talking about and experiencing. The difference between the intellect, the rational mind, and the intuitive mind. Jesus said, lest you be like children, lest you change and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And what he was talking about was the way that children perceive. Look at them, they're spontaneous. They're in the moment. They're not judging everything that they see. They're just going with it. They have that innocence. I love this little gal here. She's like wild with this experience. She's in it. She's not thinking a whole lot of stuff. She's just experiencing. That mental shift is what we're talking about when we begin to move towards experiencing the divine. One of the ways we can do that is with mindfulness. And by mindfulness, what I mean is bringing your awareness looking at things in a particular way, choosing just to look at things non-judgmentally. When we start out as children, we try to make sense of everything that's around us. We've got all of this stimulation that's coming in, and we categorize everything. Start slow. First thing is we get this sound. People keep calling us this sound. Oh, that's who I am. Now we've been captured in this short little word. That's your name. And then we begin to get personal pronouns. Me, my. And that my word is so powerful because we begin to associate objects with us. They become part of who we are. Think about looking out a window over a parking lot and your friend looks and somebody's breaking into a window in a car and says, oh, look, somebody's stealing that car. Not much gut reaction there. Now think about your friend turns to you and says, oh, look, somebody's breaking into your car, stealing it. That's my car. It becomes part of who we are. And as we grow older, we learn more and more language to capture what the world is all about. And we learn more and more stories about ourselves. I'm reminded of a time where I looked out my window and I saw a bird on my bird feeder that I'd never seen before. And I thought, wow, look at that. There's this purple sheen to the feathers. There's this sparkling stuff down in the bottom. And every time this bird would come by, I would stop. And I would look at it. Oh, this is really an interesting bird. So finally I got out my bird book. And I went, oh, it's a starling. Kind of a nuisance bird. I had a label for it now. I'd captured it. But I stole this essence. Next time that bird came on, I looked at it and went, oh, it's a starling. That's one of those nuisance birds. I no longer saw it in the same way. Think of the stories that we tell about ourselves. They become part of who we identify with as human beings. Don Miguel Ruiz in Four Agreements tells a wonderful story. It's kind of a tragic story about a mother who dearly loves her daughter. And her daughter loves to sing. One day the mom had a terrible time at work. It was very emotionally upsetting. And she came home, and her daughter was full of love and joy and energy. She was singing louder and louder. And finally, the mother said, would you shut up? Your voice is ugly. Would you please be quiet? From that day forward, she never sang. She had tacitly agreed with her mother's assessment. That beautiful voice was never heard again because she now believed that in order to accept love, in order to be lovable, she needed to be quiet. She became quiet at school. And we accept those different stories, and they begin to limit the wonderful being that we are, the amazing divine beings that we are, the unlimited potential that we have. And we begin to think that we are less than we truly are. So we tell ourselves these stories, and it all is in our left brain. And when you think about it, you get to a place where you recognize that as we get older, we hear more and more, we build more and more stories, we have more and more experiences that are telling us who we are. We've labeled everything that we've seen. Think about traveling to some place that you've never been before and seeing something that you have no idea what it is. All of a sudden, it gets lively. It's like curiosity. It's like energy. You can feel it being alive. What is that? You don't have a label for it. You haven't stolen its essence. Great artists understand this. They look at the world differently because they don't look at it through the boxes of language. They don't capture it. They don't steal the essence by taking what it is they're looking at and putting some label on it that can't possibly describe it. Think of what Eskimos say. They have 50 words for snow, and they know they haven't captured it. So as long as we continue to steal the essence, we don't have the experience. So as we get older, we've got all these stories, we labeled everything, and we begin to experience what's called monkey mind. This incessant, involuntary chatter that's going on in your brain. If you want to try to see whether you have it, all you have to do is close your eyes. What comes up? Is it peace? Is it quiet? Or is this involuntary chatter that just is going on and on and on? This chain of thoughts that leads us to believe that who we are is our thoughts, and we're not. We're so much more than that. What would it be like to close the eyes and have silence? December 10th, 1996, neuroanatomist Jill Bolte Taylor had spent her career learning about how does the inner mind work. On that day, she did get silence when she closed her eyes, but it was because she was having a stroke in her left cerebral cortex. Those cells that create that language are about the size of a peanut. And they were no longer operational. She could not walk, she could not talk, she could not read, she could not write. All memory of what had come before was gone. She watched very carefully. Came to the realization, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. But as she watched, she had an experience that shook her. An experience has become foundational for her for the rest of her life. Because what happened is as that left brain shut down, she began to move into that intuitive right brain. Time was no longer there. Separation from everything around her was no longer there. She was now connected with the universe. She was having a peak divine experience. Later on, Oprah Winfrey was interviewing her and said, did you see God? And she said, no, I was God. I was that all-knowing energy. I was connected with everything. There was no separateness. It was nirvana. So we can make that shift. We can choose how to think. One of the ways we do that is through mindfulness, where we pull ourselves into the moment by paying attention. By paying attention in a non-judgmental way. So instead of putting those labels on it that pull in the left brain and say, oh, there's my mental Rolodex going. Yeah, I know what that is. Okay, overdone with, don't need to look at it anymore. Because that's what happens. It's overdone with, don't need to look at it anymore. And you lose the essence. Great art is when we see somebody that has looked so powerfully at what they are observing and has been able to translate that in a way that it's communicated to us, and they've seen the divine essence of it. Now I'd like to show you a clip from a movie called, by Dan Millman, called Peaceful Warrior. And it talks about pulling the awareness into the moment, being in that moment. Kind of set the stage as we're queuing everything up. You're going to see two people in this movie One is Dan Millman, or the surrogate for him, and one is a teacher, a guru, in essence. He calls him Socrates. And Socrates has learned, through many years of practice, how to bring himself into the moment, at every moment. And what you're going to see is a lesson that he teaches Dan, a lesson that Dan finds a bit surprising. But it teaches him what the mind is doing. We want 8. And it shows the difference between thinking and experiencing. Because when you are in the experience, thought stops. You want track 8. And when that thought stops, the mind is naturally drawn to that right side, that right hemisphere. Hopefully we'll get there soon. For all of us, practicing being mindful, practicing being in the moment, changes your neurology. It changes what's going on in your brain. Because every time you make that shift away from all that language, all that left brain, all that labeling, all that judging, and bring yourself into a place where you're just experiencing. Every time you do that, you're reinforcing a neurological path inside of you. That path then begins to become easier to travel. It becomes the norm. Because neurons that wire together, that fire together, they wire together. So you're building, you're changing the neurology of your experience. And the more you do this, the more you find yourself experiencing life in the moment. Coming into situations without judging them, coming into situations without labeling them, coming into situations and just allowing yourself to experience them fully, getting to the essence of them. And the deeper that goes, the more powerful it becomes. And the more you become aware of it, the more you begin to see the divinity in everything that is around you. Here we are.
Oh, Simon, where you go? We're to Palmer horse trials. Oh, God. Less than an hour. Hey, wait up. Tell them to hold up for me, all right? What? Hey. Listen. Totally forgot about this. But I got this thing at the gym. It's pretty important. I'll make this quick. Sure. What the hell is wrong with you?
Said you were in a hurry.
So you pushed me off the bridge?
I emptied your mind.
You what?
I emptied.
No, you didn't. You threw me into the river.
And while you were falling, tell me, Dan, what were you thinking about?
I don't know.
Were you thinking about school?
No.
Grocery shopping?
No.
This thing you had to hurry off to?
No, I was...
Present. Devoted 100% to the experience you were having. You even had a word for it.
You're out of your mind, you know that?
It's taken a lifetime of practice. We want you out of your mind too, Dan.
What is that you do? Some kind of martial arts move? I didn't see it coming.
You weren't paying attention. Even now you're not. Your mind's filling up again. You're missing out on everything that's going on.
There's nothing going on.
There's never nothing going on. Take out the trash, Dan. The trash is anything that is keeping you from the only thing that matters. This moment. Here. Now. And when you truly are in the here and now, you'll be amazed at what you can do and how well you can do it.
Take out the trash. The trash is anything that prevents you from being in the here and now. The only moment that matters. Everything else is just an illusion, a thought about the past, about the future. The only place where you can truly connect with what is going on is right here and right now. He talked about a lifetime of practice. He said, Dan said, you're out of your mind. He says, yes, it's taken a lifetime of practice, and that's exactly what he's talking about. A lifetime of practicing, of getting out of the monkey mind. A lifetime of practicing, of being in the moment. A lifetime of connecting with what it is we're doing. We know when we're not mindful. We know when we're not in the moment. Think about driving to work and you get there, you're not even sure how you got there. Having a conversation with somebody, you get to the end of it and you don't know what has been said. Reading a page in a book and getting to the end of it and not remembering what you've said. Eating a meal, getting done, know you've had something great, but gee, what did it taste like? We know what it's like to not be in the moment. We know what it is to worry. We know what it is to play the same mental scenarios over and over and over again, especially if it's something that's very important. But each and every one of those things pulls you out of your essence, pulls you out of the divinity that you are, pulls you out of the moment. So as we practice that mindfulness, as we bring ourselves into the moment, we reinforce the neurology. Athletes have known it for a long time. Elite athletes know how to get out of the mind because they do things that if you were thinking about it, there's no way they could do it. You think you can hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and you're thinking about it? Not going to happen. They are so totally pulled into the moment. Action becomes almost automatic at that point. So it's a transformation of consciousness, a transformation of how we experience the world. And Jesus said to us, truly, truly, unless you are born again, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is here, now, today, every day. It is in the moment. And as long as we stay in the left hemisphere of our brain thinking about everything, we are not going to experience it. It is a shift, a choice to turn right from that left hemisphere, to pay attention to what's going on in your life. Meditation is another way to do it. In the 60s, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi came over and he brought transcendental meditation. And he used to describe the process of meditating. And he said, If you notice what your mind does, your mind is always being drawn to that which is more pleasing. You want an example of that? Look at a 17-year-old boy that sees a good-looking girl go by. It's automatic. Mind is naturally drawn to that which is more pleasing. There's nothing more pleasing than your divine essence, than that source of creative intelligence that is deep within you. There is nothing more powerful, so that when you sit down and either let the mind be aware of the breath or let the mind be aware of a mantra as some vehicle to just hold the mind without engaging it, to keep you awake without engaging you into intellectual thought, the mind naturally settles down. But then you say, well, wait a minute, I have all these thoughts that come up. The body takes what it needs when you begin to settle down. You're shifting away from that fight or flight response that you're almost always in into a rest and digest parasympathetic response where you're settling down. So when you settle down, stress releases and you experience it as thoughts. So if you just come back to the breath, come back to the mantra again, you're going to go down. But the experience is that as you do this more and more, you begin to bring out into your activity that centeredness, that calmness, that divinity. Maharishi used to describe it as very much like dyeing a cloth. When you go into meditation, you go deeper, deeper, and you transcend. There's no thought, but you're not asleep. And you come out, and you feel more peaceful. You feel more connected. You have had a right brain experience. Like taking the cloth and putting it into the dye, and you bring it out into the sun, just like coming out of meditation into activity. The sun makes the dye fade. So you have to put it back in. And then you bring it back out. And this time it fades also, but not quite as much. And it's like that with meditation. You bring yourself into your center. You bring yourself into your source. You bring yourself into your divinity. And you bring it back out into the world. And then it fades because you get lost in the activity of the world. And then you do it again. And each time you bring more of it out. And you begin to change. You begin to transform yourself. I had the opportunity to meditate for 6 months. I was a real linear, left brain kind of guy before I went. Real past, present, future, real planner. I had it all planned out and everything. Wasn't paying much attention to what was going on in the current moment. After 6 months of meditation, I noticed an incredible transformation. No longer did I feel separate as I had when I began the course. No longer did I feel unconnected with my being. I was able to sit quietly and enjoy the silence. I was able to look at everything with new eyes. I felt like a kid. Colors were vibrant. Sound was incredible. Tastes were just amazing. All of that just from taking the mind inward. Just from shifting from that thought-based consciousness into that intuitive consciousness. Albert Einstein once said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society in which the servant is honored and the gift, that sacred gift, has been forgotten. We're in a society that lords intelligence, that lords cleverness. It's not your source. It's not who you are. When I came back from doing all that meditation, I had a job that was filled with drama. I taught driving. I had people that were constantly trying to take me over that center line. I was totally calm and at peace. I I would gently reach over and grab the steering wheel and direct us back onto our side of the road. And try to help my student because they were usually in hysterics. When you get centered, the drama of life begins to stop. You begin to see life in a different way. When Jesus talked about the second coming, there were many interpretations of it. There was much said about Jesus coming again and him looking and judging and saying, you were the believers. You're saved. You did not believe. You're lost. It had nothing to do with that. What it was about was the coming of Christ's consciousness. The same coming of Christ consciousness that Jesus brought into his life. And what his message was for his entire life. Each and every one of you can do what I did. Each and every one of you can bring that Christ consciousness fully into your awareness and awaken. That's what Jesus was talking about with the second coming. So Christmas is upon us. The birth of Christ is upon us. The remembrance of it. Think about it in terms of your own birth. Your own birth into Christ consciousness. And make a choice. Choose to bring your awareness into the moment. Choose not to believe all those limiting beliefs that you've heard about yourself. Choose to understand your divine nature. Choose to do meditation. Choose to experience the world in a new and vibrant way because of how you approach it. Because that is the gift that Christ brings us. God bless you.